Hey guys, probably the single most powerful tool that you've got when you're working with audio is EQ. Now, I know there are plenty of other plugins that will do modulation and distortion and all kinds of sound designy stuff that really mangle sounds into totally unrecognizable things, but when it comes to a single tool, EQ is it. So today I want to show you 3 EQ tricks that I use all the time to change the shapes of my sounds, show you how they sound, how to use them, how to do it yourself. Before we get started, if you enjoy these videos, you want to support my channel, head over to alexknickerbocker.com. I've got a PayPal donation link as well as a bunch of sound effects libraries that I'm curating from my personal collection for your royalty-free use. I've got transitions and whooshes and stingers, backgrounds, vehicles, all kinds of things to design pretty much any scene you could want, and I'll be adding more as I can, so don't forget to check back. All right, before anything else, you have to understand how an EQ works, and EQs are basically just really specific level controls for different parts of your frequency spectrum. Take the low end of my voice, for instance. I can boost that up and you can hear it's just sort of a low-end wash. There's not really any tonal component to it. It's not particularly pleasant. It's all just kind of boomy and boxy. A little bit above that are more the fundamental frequencies of my voice, kind of what's responsible for how I sound overall. And by raising or lowering these, I can make some really interesting creative decisions. I can make myself sound a little bit stronger or a little bit weaker, depending on what frequencies I want to feature. So really powerful tools in there. Slightly above that, it's where everything gets kind of muddy. Pretty much anywhere between 300 and 500 hertz, you get this really strange boxy quality, and it just sounds like you're almost speaking like this, but with just an EQ. So you kind of generally want to tuck those frequencies when you're working with EQ, but it's not necessary depending on how you're recording things. So those are all your low-mid frequencies. And right above that, of course, is your mid-range. And the human ear is actually tuned to hear mid-range frequencies a lot better because that's the main content of your speech. So it's interesting, you can start manipulating that and it'll sound a lot more irritating because you're, again, picking up more of those naturally, or you can scoop them and things will sound a little bit different and feel a little bit different as a result. Right above your mid-range is your high mids, and that's where things kind of start getting irritating. You get a little bit more kind of harshness if you boost those too much, but you can also sound a little bit maybe too soft if you scoop them too much, so you kind of have to be careful how you're adjusting things there. Above that, it's all pretty much high frequencies, and that's where you get sibilance, and you get kind of brightness and air, and things sound a little bit more crisp if you boost frequencies in that range, and a little bit darker or duller if you scoop them. So again, it's really important to understand where all these frequencies fall and how they sound so you can more effectively work with an EQ. All right, so let's get into some of these tricks. The first thing I want to show you is how to get cinematic sounding dialogue. Now, I'm going to be using FabFilter's Pro Q as my EQ, but this works with every EQ out there, so don't worry if you don't have the same plugins or even the same DAW as I do. It doesn't matter as long as you're able to work with an EQ and you can understand these basic concepts. Now, cinematic dialogue sounds big and present and smooth, so I want to feature frequencies that have those qualities, and I want to remove or reduce frequencies that don't. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of all the ones that I don't need. I'm going to use filters to scoop out all the low end below the fundamental frequencies of my voice because I just am not going to work with it, and I'm going to scoop out the top end with a filter as well because the main body of my voice doesn't really have any content above about 14 to 18 kilohertz. It's all just top end air. I'm just going to get rid of it. We don't need it. Now, the range that you decide to filter out is going to be a little bit different than mine, just depending on your voice, but you can use your ears to make sure that you're not getting any necessary frequencies out. You're only scooping out stuff that you really aren't going to hear in the first place, like low-end anomalies or just top-end hiss. Next, I'm going to find some of the irritating frequencies in my voice and remove them. So I'll take a couple of bands and I'll just raise them up with a really narrow bandwidth or Q, and I'll sweep them back and forth until I hear something that starts ringing or resonating a little bit more than other frequencies. And once I've found that, I can notch those out, reducing them by maybe even up to 10 dB to get that nice smooth sound and get the harshness and the weirdness again out of that maybe 1000 to 4000 hertz range, and that's going to clear the way for a lot of the better, more pleasant frequencies in my voice. Next, I'm going to reduce the mud in my voice that I mentioned earlier, so that 300 to 500 hertz range, I'm going to boost that up just so I can hear that I'm getting the right frequencies, and then tuck it down so it just clears the way again for all the present and nice sounding frequencies that I want. So that leaves me with a little bit of low end energy and a little bit of top end energy to just sweeten up a little bit, and it gets me that much closer to, again, that smooth cinematic quality quality that I want out of my voice. Next, I'm going to show you something I do all the time, and that is make my voice sound like it's coming out of a phone or a mobile device of some kind. The way phones transmit audio, it's truncating all of that voice information down into just the bare necessities, so it's really just the mid-range of your voice. So you can use filters to reduce the top end and the bottom end frequencies of your voice completely out, and that just leaves you with this mid-range kind of weird, aggressive, harsh sound. That's kind of what you want for phone recordings. So with that, I'll reduce a little bit of that harshness. Again, same principle as reducing mud. And maybe I'll even add a little bit of the resonant frequencies back that are, again, kind of unpleasant, but are really featured when you're talking on the phone. So adding those back in gives a little bit more authentic quality. And again, just by removing a bunch of frequencies and sweetening one or two, you can get the telephone voice recording sound very, very easily. And last, I want to show you how I get a little bit more of a dreamy sound to my voice for anything where, the voice that's being used isn't supposed to sound all there. It's a little bit more removed. Now, the quality that I need here is a little bit more of a distant and sort of underwater sound. So not much clarity in the voice, more low-end energy that I would have rolled off ordinarily. So because I'm not going for clarity, I'm going, again, more for that boxy muddiness down at the bottom end of the frequency range. I'm not going to roll off any of the low end in my voice. I'll just roll off the top end until I sound sufficiently distant and kind of just disconnected from reality in a lot of ways. I'll do the same thing, kind of scooping out some of the more muddy or prevalent low end in my voice just so it's not over-modulating or sounding a little too weird. But other than that, I really don't have to do very much besides get rid of all the actual information of the voice, and it'll sound pretty dreamy and ethereal. Now the trick with this is you want to add just a little touch of reverb underneath that as well. Something a little bit longer than just your standard room or hall, maybe a few seconds on the tail. And by layering that underneath my voice, I can again make it that much more ethereal and feel disconnected in a way that, I just feel underwater. I feel like I'm in a dream just listening to that. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on how you can use something as simple as an EQ to achieve some really interesting creative results and get way more out of your audio. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit subscribe. I'm over on Instagram at AXK, so come follow me over there. And as always, thanks for watching.